Well, just this past week, a new jobs report came out. We discovered that we actually added 96,000 jobs in August of 2012, which includes 103,000 jobs, private jobs that is, and we lost approximately 7,000 jobs between local, state, and federal governments at those levels. So why wasn't the job market perceived as something that was actually positive? We lost 0.2 of a percentage point, going to 8.1% from 8.3% unemployment, but it wasn't an overwhelming or resounding positive thing, at least in the market. So what are some things that we had to consider, or what was considered as far as gauging the health of the job market? One of the things that you never want to do, and this is outside of even the job market, is rely solely on one statistic to paint a picture about something. And that's what the issue is with regards to the unemployment rate, is a lot of times it's the only thing that's reported on, and a lot of weight is given towards it, yet it really is just one statistic out of a series of statistics that are used to get a gauge on the overall health of the job market. So let me explain first a few of the different statistics that can be used to get a gauge on the health of the job market. The first of which is what we call the unemployment rate. This is by and large what you'll hear predominantly in the news. It is the most widely reported statistic with regards to the job market. And the unemployment rate simply is the percentage of people that are without work and are actively seeking work. So what happens is a survey is essentially done to determine the number of people that are actively seeking work but do not have work of some capacity, and then obviously dividing those number of people by the actual workforce in its entirety, and that gets you the unemployment rate. Now, there are a couple of conditions, of course. First, to be considered as part of the unemployed, you have to be what's called willing and able to work. So able meaning you're of working age, and also willing mean you have a desire to work. You're not retired, you're not unemployed out of desire, but you're actually seeking work. The other component to that is you have to be actively seeking work. So this implies that you are going out and applying for jobs and going through interviews and actually making steps and going through attempts to actually land a position of some kind. If you simply want to work but aren't actually putting forth the effort into obtaining a job, then you wouldn't be factored into the unemployment rate. Okay. So there's a couple of issues with the unemployment rate, which we're going to discover as we talk about what we know in terms of the underemployment rate. Now, the underemployment rate is the percentage of people that are without work, so same thing as the unemployment rate, but it actually goes a step further. In addition to including those individuals that are without work, that are actively seeking it, that are willing and able, it also includes those that have settled for part-time work in lieu of obtaining full-time work. People that have settled, essentially, have attempted to find full-time positions for whatever reason, because the job market obviously isn't very healthy, have been unable to find those full-time positions, and so in lieu of not working, have settled for part-time work. And it also includes those that have actually dropped out of the job market entirely. And you may ask, why would you drop out of the job market entirely? Typically what it is it's usually related to becoming frustrated with your prospects of actually landing a job. You think if you are looking for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and have been unable to secure a position of any kind, you're going to begin to become a little frustrated, if not very frustrated, as that time period begins to drag on. And so as the health of the job market, as your prospects of landing a position become weaker and weaker and weaker, what some people do is they drop out of the job market entirely. They think, you know what, this isn't really worth my time. My chances of landing a job in this economy are very small, and so it's not even worth it to start to look. My time would be better served by not looking and devoting my time and energies into other things. And that's very problematic, because that really gets you a gauge or a pulse on how healthy the job market is. When you have people dropping out because they are become so frustrated with the prospect of landing a position, that's not a very positive thing. And so let me explain how this can actually play a factor in what we view in terms of the unemployment rate. I mentioned that in July of 2012, the unemployment rate actually increased to 8.3%. However, it wasn't necessarily viewed as a overwhelmingly negative thing. And the reason for that is even if the unemployment rate rises, it doesn't necessarily mean that we are that more people don't have jobs. What that can mean is that people who originally dropped out of the job market, meaning they weren't looking for work because their prospects were so weak, they felt like the economy was too bad, they couldn't land a job. If those people all of a sudden now re-enter the job market because they feel that it's more favorable, they feel like it's strengthened, the chances of obtaining a position are much greater, then that could potentially cause the unemployment rate to actually increase. Regardless if we've actually still have the same number of unemployed workers, but because we have more people that are actively seeking work that weren't originally, that could cause an increase in that unemployment rate. Now, you may think, well, an increase in the unemployment rate is bad, but not in all circumstances. There are certain situations, like the one I described, where you have people re-entering the job market, where it could be a positive thing. Now, obviously, there's multiple different variables to consider, and you don't want to necessarily rely solely on one measure to give you a gauge on how healthy the job market is, or really anything else for that matter. But let me give you another example. Let's say, for example, our unemployment rate actually dropped to 8.1%. Okay, so we dropped 0.2 of a percentage point. Obviously, that's good. You would rather that the unemployment rate to be lower than higher. But once again, you have to kind of read between the lines here, because what the unemployment rate isn't telling you, are we truly benefiting from more people having jobs, which obviously we want, because that means more people are bringing in incomes and have more money to spend to re-inject back into the economy, creating demand for business goods and services, and then in turn, hopefully encouraging businesses to actually hire in order to meet demand. So that is good, obviously. But is it for that reason, or is it because people have actually dropped out of the workforce because, once again, they view the health of the job market as weakening, their prospects of landing a position, they feel their chances are very, very minimal, so why put forth the effort? And that's partly to explain by the decrease in the unemployment rate. We haven't necessarily added a resounding number of jobs. Last month it was simply 96,000, which isn't enough even to keep pace with the people that are entering the workforce, just due to age and obviously getting to that age where you actually can start to work. So 96,000 jobs isn't even enough to keep pace with that. But once again, if you have people that actually drop out of the workforce, it could give you a false read, because we look at the number, it's lower, it must be positive. But once again, you do have to consider other things, because it may not be painting the full picture of what's really going on in the job market.